Hold on one second. It looks like something wasn't. It looks like we are live right now, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Diamond Rivera of Diamond Rivera Films. Today, here, we have a very, very special guest, the one and only Edd Amaya, everyone.
Thank you, Diamond. Appreciate you having me on the show, brother. Appreciate it, hermano. Ya tú sabes.
Absolutely. And, today, I really feel that this interview, this discussion is really, really important because I have so many guests thus far that, they talk about their dance journeys, what we're going to talk about. They talk about their classes, they talk about their travels. But I think really today, what's really important is we're really going to also touch on the problems that really are happening in our community and how you yourself have become a leader, especially in the protests of Black Lives Matter in Phoenix, where you reside. And, it's definitely something we need to discuss. Myself and so many others would love more clarity and context because myself, I support what you're doing and so many others. And, a lot of people do want to know what goes on the front lines. And you are definitely one of those observers and you see everything firsthand. But, again, I thank you for coming on to the platform. And, before we get to that, I would love to now go really from the beginning and let me and the audience know, how did your dance journey begin?
Oh, awesome. So I'm from Houston, or it's the greater city of Houston area. So I grew up in a little town called Lamarck, which is like really the country, but we're about 25 minutes south of Houston. And then I used to spend a lot of time in South Houston with my godparents because my mom used to work in the hotel industry. I was always around the culture because I grew up. My mom's Mexican. She's from Veracruz, which is a real Caribbean part of Mexico. And then also my dad is Garifuna, and he is
Mm,
from Honduras. So basically, I was always around the Caribbean, like Afro Latin culture, because that's who I am. I am considered a mulatto. When you grow up with it, it's second nature. You're breathing the culture and whatnot. So, and then also growing up in a Latino household where Spanish is first, and then you get beat up for speaking English by your mama and your aunties and your
mhm.
tios and whatnot. So it's definitely ingrained in my DNA because I am first generation. I went to college, Texas A&M University, and then from there, shortly afterwards, I moved to Phoenix. I had a choice to go to Phoenix or to Los Angeles
Mm.
for my career. And I don't like earthquakes nor anything like shaking below me and whatnot. So I was like, you know what? Like I'd rather deal with the heat. So I went to Phoenix. So a couple years into it, I wasn't really into like dancing at first. I would always dance in the kitchen with my mom, cleaning the
Mhm.
house, quinceañeras, little get-togethers, little pachangas in the backyard with my families and whatnot. So that's really what I knew to the extent of what dance was. And then, yeah, man, I was on a date, and then I just so happened to like hear the music, and I went upstairs to this little venue, and people were like dancing. I'm like, oh, this is lit. I'm like, well, they don't know how to dance like me because I got the sauce. Well, I thought I had the sauce. So I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever. So at that point, I was like, oh, there's more spots to go dance like this, but I didn't really know how to dance in this organized fashion because
Gotcha.
when you learn how to dance,
Yeah.
and at home, you don't dance in a line. You get down, you do all types of crazy stuff. So like I didn't really know how to dance. So a couple months into it, my mentor, my coach, Lawrence Garcia, found me at one of the venues. He was like, "Hey, like I see you moving. You know how to move, but you don't have any technique. You need to really take
Mhm.
like some classes." He was like, "Hey, like I'll train you." So for 6 months, brother, 6 months, 3 days a week, 2 hours a day. So basically 6 hours a week. I was in the studio grinding with Lawrence Garcia, and then I was a salsero first, but I just consider myself a dancer because I do connect with both salsa, bachata, with a bunch of other genres and whatnot. But
Mhm.
I'm always a student to the game, so that's how I got started in dancing. That's my story.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's like I think it's very important that people understand that a lot of our dancers who started out, we always started at home. We always
Facts.
started, we weren't always classically trained. We started at
None.
home with our parents in the house, in the kitchen, in the sala, and we really, again, it's people like you said, like Lawrence, there were people in your community that saw you and said, hey, I see you enjoying this culture and this atmosphere that we're in and this type of genre, like, why don't you take classes? And it was you that said, hey, you know, maybe I want to take this serious, take some classes, and you dedicated your time. And I think that's very important because, you know, we have hundreds, if not thousands of dancers in our community. And we really to understand that, you know, not everyone again was classically trained from an early age. And to
Right.
see that, you know, your friends, the people you talk to, were those influences is awesome because, you know, it just shows the genuineness and it shows that, hey, you love this art form and you took the time to do this. And a question that I do have was, when was that moment that you realized, like, hey, I could take this serious and start teaching and traveling?
The moment was probably a year into like the dance journey. And Lawrence, he always jokes around with me. He's like, hey, look, he's a little older than me and I'm a little younger than him. So he was like, look, I'm never gonna let you catch up. So we're always going back and forth and arguing about like, nah, man, we need to do this, we need to do that. And I got to the point where I was like creating sequences myself, and he really started to take notice of that. And because
Mhm.
he Lawrence is really great at sequencing, he's really good at connecting all the movements together to make it look so fluid and flowy, right? And
Mhm.
he was like, "Hey, I'm going to push you to start teaching beginners." And it took him a couple months before I was like, "Look, I'll try it out," because I wasn't really like trying to teach. I was really just trying to do my thing, you know. I was really
Yeah.
trying to be a really good social dancer, a really good performer under Lawrence, whatnot. He was like, "No, I'm going to push you because at the end of the day, leaders like Lawrence know that he's not the end all be all. He has to push it
Mhm.
forward, right? So if anything happens to his dancing, or let's say he retires in the next 10 years, who's going to be the next person to carry the torch? Who's going to be the next person to learn and gain that experience to lead a community and really represent not only the dance well, but the culture well? So he saw that in me. And it took, like I said, it took a couple of months before it clicked, where I was like, okay, like I think we're on the same page. Let me keep doing what I have to do to get better, and then let
Mhm.
me let me take orders, because a good leader is a good follower as well. Because if
Yes.
he sees something in me, if he sees something in me that I don't see, I have to trust him. If I trust him enough for my process and my journey, and as a brother, because he is like my brother now, I trust him as a brother. I have to trust his judgment. So at that point, he pushed me to start teaching beginners at his Mambo Exquisite Tuesday. So I would
Yes.
teach beginners on the beginner side, beginner mambo, beginner, sequencing and whatnot. And from there, I was like, you know what, I can actually do this. Another influence of mine to start teaching bachata though was Alex and Desiree. So I would always
Mm.
follow them. I met them, brought them to Phoenix and all that kind of good stuff, and they saw the potential in me too. And it wasn't one of those things where like, hey, I want you to have a team, get a team in Phoenix. It was definitely genuine. It wasn't like for financial gain or anything. It was more so
Mhm.
like, hey, you're an Afro Latino, you're young, you have charisma, you know how to move. Like, this I got the same feeling of pushing the future of this dance, of this culture forward in the United States. So,
Yes.
I got that feeling, that same feeling, so, and I was like, you know what, like, I can actually do this. So from there on, man, it's been a hell of a journey, and we're here right now. It's August 2020, middle of a pandemic, and
Yeah.
we're keeping it strong. We're keeping it strong. This is where it counts. That fourth lap to that mile, that's when you really start running. That's when you really start grinding. And if you can grind it out right now, when everything's shut down, it's like we're cut from a different cloth. So shout out to everybody that's grinding it out right now.
Yeah, and like you said, you know, you had the influences like Alex and Desiree who've been doing this a very long time, but it's then people like yourself that, again, you came from Houston, which is actually a connection with Desiree, who is from Houston. She's
She's
actually
from
from,
yeah, she's
yeah,
actually from the city. Yeah, like me, I
yeah.
had my family always moved around just because of financial issues and whatnot. So, I moved out to, like I said, this town called
Mhm.
Lamarck. And it's really the county, Galveston County, called the county
Yeah,
where it's really country. It's super country, man. So it's
yeah,
really when I say like diverse, it's really diverse, but I grew up in a black community. But yeah,
yes,
she's from the city. Like, she's from Houston, bro. So yeah, we
yeah,
chopped it up a couple of times. And yeah, man, it's like that's how you maintain connections and your network. And when you have to build those relationships. So
yeah.
that was definitely a great relationship. Another relationship was like DeJohn. DeJohn's from New Orleans.
Mhm.
He's from New Orleans, and he loves what he does, and he's been somebody that I really look up to when it comes to the way he grinds, his mentality of just nonstop. And he'll run through the walls if he has to in order for
Mhm.
him to, like, be successful. And that's the type of people that I needed in my life because of circumstances, and in my dance life for sure, because he loves to train. So that's another influence right there, where it was more so like, hey, like, you got it. Let's make sure you get there. Let's make sure you don't do X, Y, and Z. Don't repeat these mistakes that I did. Don't do this. Don't do that. Keep doing this. Keep doing that. So it's really like positive reinforcement on top of tough
Mhm.
love. So it's definitely a well appreciated, and I can name all my influences
Mhm.
till today. But the very first ones were Dejan, and then like shortly after that was Alex and Desiree.
Gotcha. And then a question I do have: do you remember your first Congress experience? What was that
Man,
like?
this so basically, man, I can't remember which one it was, brother. It was
Mhm.
I believe it was Palm Springs salsa like extravaganza or something
Yes,
like
I
that.
know they were doing an event. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, man. So Lawrence took me, and it was my very first Congress. And me being me, I was in the middle of my training, and I was like, you know what? At least I have the basic. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go into the deep end. I'm gonna get my ass kicked because that's just the way I learn, right? It's more so
Mhm.
like put me on like forge under fire, right? So like let me do like the dance challenge. I remember I did a dance challenge with like Amneris from Puerto Rico. She was living in Spain. Well, she's still living in Spain, I believe. And that it just went super over my head, man. I met Eder, I met Gracial, I met some of the best dancers in LA, and it went over my head. But I had the grit enough to go through that challenge experience and perform it. I did
Mhm.
not perform it well, but I was still saucy. I was messing up, but I made sure
Yeah.
I was there moving. You know, I was there moving. But it definitely kicked my ass, and it made me realize, like, hey, like, you've been training hard, but you need to go harder, and you need
Yeah.
you need to do it now. So it was great, man. It was different because I never knew that different cities had like their own like thing going on. Like I knew like people danced and whatnot, but it's a whole organization. Like a community is definitely a whole organization, and to see different communities put on events is a reflect of their leadership. So if
Mhm.
it's a really like smooth and engaging event, it's really a reflection of their leadership and how well they get together in that community, right? So yeah, like Palm Springs was a great event. The bachata room was lit, salsa room was lit, and I mean, dude, like it was eye opening because at that point I was like, if this is lit here in Palm Springs, like what about if we go to LA? What if we go back to Houston, back to the
Mhm.
crib? What if we go to Miami? What if we go to New York, Chicago? It's like, man, like this is dope. So it changed my perspective on how other people interact with each other that are not from the same community.
Yeah, and for me, I guess I would say my first introduction to you, I was watching. I'm a very big fan of a media company called Creative Labs, and I remember there was events that you were going to, and like you said, the word sauce. There was something that you had, the way you dressed, the way your demeanor was, that was captivating. And for me, as a visual artist, that means a lot. And even knowing, because when I'm watching you, I'm saying, wow, he's an awesome dancer from LA, but then come to find out you're coming from Phoenix. That travel, whether it's really a long trip or not, I mean, for you to travel to LA or travel to places outside of your hometown to go and visit people, to go into these socials and these events, it means a lot. And that, again, it's that dedication where it comes in from you starting as a dancer, as a novice dancer, just wanting to learn, to you now traveling to LA and different congresses on the West Coast or down south and really putting your name out there. And a question I definitely have is, what is the bachata scene like in Phoenix?
Oh man, so and then, like, listen, before we even go to that,
Yeah.
um, shout out to Raul Bedrano and Eddie Sanchez. They're the ones that they run Creators Lab, and they're amazing individuals. And I brought them out to Phoenix a couple of times to film some of the events because I am an organizer here in Phoenix, and they're
Mhm.
just amazing people. Just from head to toe, amazing people, great souls, great energy. And the one thing that they told me, because they knew I was a novice dancer at a point in
Mhm.
time, and then when they told me is like, hey, like from us, like we capture visuals, we capture the moment, we capture, what's actually happening. And one thing they said is like, man, just keep having fun. And that's one thing that I always remember when I'm dancing or when I'm practicing, when I'm training or whatnot. And it's more so just like, hey, keep having fun. Nobody wants to be or dance that dancer that's just taking everything serious and counting when they're dancing and this and that. Like, yeah, you need to train and you need to, like, learn proper technique. But when you're out there, just have some fun, because people are attracted to the energy. People are attracted to that vibe, right? So when you're
Mhm.
vibrating positive energy, when you're dancing, smiling, you're having fun, people are going to be captivating. They don't care if you're doing just a Suzy Q or a box step in bachata. It doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as you have that positivity, like, just like oozing out, which is the sauce.
Yeah.
Like, it's always going to be a pleasure. And like I said, huge shout out to them, because they just know how to capture that and bring that out of people. And it's super genuine, right? But the bachata scene in Phoenix, it's strong, and it's really unique, and it's peculiar, because when I stepped onto the scene, um, there was a wave, because it was the very first wave of, like, sensual bachata, right? Just sensual
Gotcha.
movement and whatnot. And me, like, my friends and I, we always have, like, it's not really an argument, it's really the discussion of, like, hey,
Yes.
like I grew up to Raulín, to Teodoro,
Sí.
to Kiko, like, that's to me, that's bachata. And body movement, the hips, the ribs, the grinding into the ground.
Yeah.
That to me was bachata. So when I started seeing all these body rolls and, like, like zouk movement, I'm like, yo, this is dope. But, like, can you please play something we can really get down to? Because, like,
Yeah.
that was really my sentiment. So it was a lot of that. Because before there was bachata in Phoenix, there was just salsa, and they would play one bachata like every 20 minutes or 30 minutes or so. So
Mm.
imagine being a bachatero, or just a dancer that prefers bachata. Because I don't like using the term salsero or bachatero, because I
Okay.
just love dance, man. This is the culture, bro. Like,
Yeah.
hey, Latinos, we get down to whatever. Put a merengue on, we gonna tear it up. You know that.
Yeah.
You know that for sure.
Yeah.
Like, the roof is gonna be on fire. So the thing is, like, when people prefer bachata and they're waiting for a song for 20 minutes, it's a little frustrating. So the movement of just bachata only came, and it took all the bachateros, and it was more so like sensual bachata, to where it was minimal traditional. It was
Yes.
minimal of what the organic, the non-GMO, cage-free, wild bachata that we want to get
Yes.
down to. There was really none of that. So the bachata scene started growing, but within that realm, right? So
Mhm.
now, fast forward to 2019, 2020, I've been really pushing the agenda of, hey, this is traditional bachata. These are the fundamentals. This is the side basic. This is the forward basic. This is the back. This is the camina. This is the X, Y, and Z. This is how you put everything together. So when you're social dancing, it's the combination of all your basics. But people have this, I don't want to say like an entitlement, but they
Mhm.
have this feeling of, oh, I don't want to train basics because I'm not a beginner. It's it's totally different worlds. Basics and beginner level materials is two different things. Your basics is literally all your movement. Like I was saying, like, it's the V step, it's the camina, the reverse box steps, everything that you can do within the song without moving side to side is your basics. So people didn't really understand the terminology, the technique, the movement. So now I'm pushing that, and we're building, like, bachateros from the bottom up, to where now they
Yes.
can they can go they can go to Zouk if they want to, so they can start learning the proper movement of, like, body rolls and tilting your head and the rolling and
Mhm.
whatnot. Now they can go to that and then do a couple months of training in that, and now they're bomb ass central bachateros, because now their feet is right, their body movement is right, and now they have the experience and the training to actually execute movement in a safe way, for one, in a safe way, but also with a correct technique. And that's really what we're doing in Phoenix. So the current scene in Phoenix is we're building dancers from the bottom up. Larry takes his time and invests so much time into dancers that
Mhm.
want to get better, from basic mambo to Afro Cuban, Orisha, Wawanko,
Mhm.
Rumba, Colombia, and he builds on top of that. So I'm using the same structure that Larry put me through when it comes
Mhm.
to bachata, of showing you the fundamentals, the weight transfers, how to prep into another step,
Mhm.
how to correctly um, do X, Y, and Z. So now, when you want to go to that next level of either being a better bachatero, you can start adding merengue intentions. You can start adding a bunch of, like, you can even add hip hop. I add the whoa to, like, most of my
Yeah.
videos, right? Like, you can start adding and layering on top of your fundamentals, and be a stronger dancer with a higher IQ, and salsa, higher IQ, and bachata and whatnot. And that's really what my goal is. So right now, it's a beautiful balance of both central, all the central bachateros, and then
Yes.
also I have people that are just hooked on traditional, and they're on their merry way to becoming just better dancers in general, for like from what they started, but then also
Mhm.
they can branch out and go into modern, into into urban bachata, into central bachata, whatever you want to label it as. But
Mhm.
now they can actually go in with the understanding of, hey, I know my fundamentals.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's very important, like you were saying, is you becoming from a person learning to dance and now becoming an instructor and realizing that being able to educate people on more than just choreography is very important. Like you said, your
Yes,
influences of Lawrence, your influences of Alex and Desiree specifically, who really are focused on teaching education, teaching about the box steps, teaching about forward movements, back movements. That all really integrates into everything. And like you said, the key word is that sauce, because you took bits and pieces, ingredients from each of the people that you were influenced by to enable you to create the sauce that you have now. And for me, I think it's amazing, and it's really it's honest of you to say like, hey, you from a person who was teaching in or living in Phoenix to say like, hey, you know, at one point it was only just salsa, because that was the, and years ago, 10 plus years ago, for a lot of communities, that's what it was. Bachata was not the oh my god, the new craze. No, it took time. But like you said, you know, you yourself, you started off as a traditional bachata dancer. For me, I always say, and I tell people, bachata is bachata. What happened was when it came to sensual bachata, the people whose eyes were captivated by it because they saw the body rolls, they saw the head movements, they saw just it appealed to certain people more. For me, I'm a traditionalist, but I learned to integrate those zouk movements. So, like you said, becoming a dancer overall, because you don't just say I'm a salsero or bachatero, you're a dancer.
correct.
And I think it is important that many dancers, either starting out or who've been doing it for many years, when you're doing bachata and realizing like sensual now in that term is a lot more popular, but I like to let people know it is not the standard.
Boom, there we go. It's a lot. The terminology is popular, but it's not the standard. I have nothing against Central Bachata. I love me some remixes when they're remixed
Yeah.
right, right.
Yes.
When they're remixed right, man, because you can hear the requinto, you can hear the huira, you can hear the bongo
Mhm.
clearly, bro. And it's like, man, okay, like the Justin Bieber, "Na, na, na,
Yeah.
yum yum." I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like I can get down, bro. I get
Yeah.
down, and people think I'm just solely like against like central. I'm not. I love bachata. Bachata is for me. I really just enjoy dancing bachata. Salsa will forever be my first love, and I feel like in my honest opinion, people
Yes.
need to train in salsa first. A lot of these good bachateros were salseros first, and
Thank
that's
you.
where their footwork's right, their timing's right. They know how to weight transfer properly. They know how to get out of timing, go back into timing. You have to, learn salsa first in order to pick this up faster. Even though bachata is a lot more beginner friendly,
Uh
people
huh.
don't know that knowing all these sequences and knowing how to go and out of basics, it's tough. So whenever you're doing that, fast or slow, it's
Hmm.
it's a lot for your feet because you're moving on every count on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 most of the time, and then you're
Yes.
adding syncopations on top of that if you're dancing to requinto. So people will try to play bachata as if it's easy. Nah, man, come to class. Come to class. I'll show you. I'll show you if it's easy. I'll show you if it's easy or not. But it's like, don't play bachata like it's like, oh, it's like it's for everyone. Where like it's just beginner friendly. Yes, it's beginner friendly, but don't think it's not as hard because you can get the work if you asking for it. You can get the work in the studio. We can go to the studio right now. But
Ex-
salsa first though. Salsa I'm telling you, you can go from dancing, your classic mambo, and then the song changes. Now you're dancing rumba, one call. You're playing.
Mhm.
You're flirting with the girl. Boom, boom, boom. Then it gets a little harder, so you start doing Colombia, and you go into your orishas, and then boom, then
Mhm.
the music changes, and now you're back. You're back dancing to mambo on two. You're doing your Adolfo turn patterns and whatnot, bro. It's great. It's a journey. Every song should be treated as a journey, and people that don't understand what I'm saying. It's more so
Yeah.
treat a song as if it's telling you what to do, and interpret what it's telling you what to do, instead of just going out there and throwing out all your 8 counts that you've learned for the past, year and all the congresses.
Yeah.
It's more so, bro, just let the music play. And if it's telling you to do smooth, slow movements, do that. But if it's telling you to do staccato movements, do that. And that's what really brings the fun out of the dance and the journey from the 1 second to the 4 minute, mark of the song, to where it's like, damn, I don't want to leave my dancers thinking I just made a movie. I just made a movie with a follow, and
Mhm.
I want to be the frame, and I want to help her. I want to create the opportunity for her to be the picture and be
Yes.
beautiful, and for her to feel herself, and for her to just really like flow with me and the lead. So yeah, man, think of every song as a journey, as a story that you want to tell to either yourself or the people watching you, or for something you can really like look back on and be like, man, I really enjoyed that dance. But to get back onto the topic, salsa first, and
Yes.
then bachata for sure.
Yeah, and that's great because the same topic and the same statement you just made, I had with Edwin Ferreras from New York.
Oh,
We had this. Yes,
nice
we
guy.
and the thing is, like, Alex and Desiree were salsa dancers before they became bachateros. And we have to understand there's no slight on saying, oh, if you don't go into salsa, but it's also, it helps. It's not a hinderment, it's not a bad thing. It is okay
It's
to be
not.
versatile. And for me, I love the transition of when you talked about how during these times you've definitely adapted and you're having classes now, because I think people have to realize is, again, what we're going through now with COVID-19 and the quarantines and places like Phoenix, places like New York, places like Texas, like California have been the epicenters, have been the cases have skyrocketed. I've heard information from past of places in Phoenix, in New York, in Cali doing events while this was happening irresponsibly. But the key was people learned from it. They learn
Correct.
from their mistakes. But what I think is really awesome is that I've been seeing, especially from you as an instructor and as a leader in your community, is that you've been able, because of in Phoenix and other places, they've allowed businesses to open, but safely. And I've seen, and I definitely commend you that I've been seeing visually you doing classes and at least implementing the mask mandates, or if not, you're operating under 6 foot spacing and just keeping people safe, but also realizing that your dancers want to dance. They miss it because most of us haven't had it for months. But the most important thing again is you keeping your dancers safe, and it's amazing that like you said, with the place that you have, it's called Dance Outlet that you have with Lawrence, is that you have a sanctuary for your dancers to enjoy that 1 hour class and just be safe, but kind of rekindling and reminiscing and reuniting with your community. And I definitely and I'm loving and I support what you're doing, because again, when you have these classes, it brings a lot of joy to the dancers in all of the communities.
No, and that's the thing. It's a sticky situation to like touch on,
Mhm.
but I'll gladly touch on it. Right. Um, Lawrence and I, we had the opportunity to purchase this
Mhm.
dance studio. So we gave it a couple of days to think about it, and we ultimately made the decision to go ahead and move forward with purchasing the dance studio. But then we knew the circumstances that we were up against when it came
Yeah.
to just closing down, because once the gyms closed down, we knew at that
Mhm.
point anything related to fitness or to movement had to be
Yeah.
shut down as well. So we operated within those guidelines. And then when things started lighting up again and whatnot, yeah, we were a lot more comfortable, on top of going through the experience of irresponsible, as people may deem it, having like house parties and like underground
Yeah.
socials and whatnot. And people want to dance, and it's more so people learn their lesson, right? Of like, hey,
Mhm.
if you're not careful, it's gonna bite you in the butt. So always be careful.
Yeah.
That's really like the standard. But people had that people had that option, and they took it, and they knew what kind of risk they were gonna run with. And I mean, it spread, right. So at that point, we had to take a step back and really reevaluate of, is this
Mhm.
responsible? not if it's right or if it's wrong, if it's legal or
Yeah.
illegal. It's like, is it responsible to the public? And people had, thoughts of it being okay. People had thoughts of it being not okay. And at that point, you really have to like take a step back and, okay, look.
I think we're, yeah, I think you're good.
Yeah, I mean, cool.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah. So basically, people had to make that decision. They have to make that decision of whether, you know, if they wanted to continue to be careful, which I support being careful. So now with the classes that Lawrence and I have, this is us being transparent right now. It's more so we have that conversation of like, hey, COVID-19, have you had it? Do you show any symptoms? Are you at risk? Do you have people at risk at home? Are you going to be in contact with anybody else? Where have you been like the last week or two, whatnot? Have you quarantined? Have you tested negative? We have that conversation, which is a really tough conversation to have because it's really personal to some
Yeah.
people. But we make sure everybody that goes into the studio is cleared, right? And there's still talk about, hey, even if you had it before, you can catch it again. At that point, we know we've done the vetting process of you being
Mhm.
safe and others being safe in the studio. On top of that, sanitizing, hand sanitizer, checking your temperature, wearing the mask and whatnot. And at that point, if I know everybody in the class is safe, I can feel comfortable taking my mask off. I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what, I'm good, and I'm solely responsible for
Mhm.
my health, but I know I'm good, so I'm not putting y'all at risk.
Yeah.
And that's really the process that we go through, making sure everybody's safe. It's a long process, but once you
Mhm.
get through that process, you're in. And at that
Yeah.
point, I do checkups. I get updates from people. I continue have that. I continue having that conversation with people because it's not over and it's not going to be over. But we have to learn how to live with it, and that's really the
Yes.
main thing. Is that how are we going to move forward with a real virus, right? So
Mhm.
people can say it's the flu, people can say it's XYZ, it's a cold and all that whatnot. And it got pretty crazy because any symptom that you were showing, it was like COVID. Oh, I have a cold. Oh, COVID. I have a sore throat. COVID. My head hurts. COVID.
Yeah.
My muscles ache. COVID. My eyes hurt. COVID. Like
Yeah.
like
No, no,
it,
it
like
really was. It
it's
really was.
it's so it's a lot, bro. And it's in at this point, how do we move forward with it? What kind of standard work as dance studio owners, as Congress owners, as social owners or organizers? What kind of standard work are we to put in place so we can make sure that we are doing our due diligence before we pull the trigger on an event, right? And at that point, I think we're all learning, not just in Phoenix, not just in New
Mhm.
York, in LA, and Houston. I believe that everyone is adapting to this change, and it's going to end in a positive
Mhm.
way because we can't just go through hell in order for it to be a negative result, right? It's more so
Yeah.
we have to go through hell. We have to adapt to the situation, create action items, execute on those action items so we can create standards, keep that standard, and then it's going to end up with a beautiful result, right? So everyone just needs to be patient. Everyone
Yeah.
needs to listen to people in that profession. I'm not going to go to a mechanic to get, doctor's advice. I'm not going to go to the doctor to get, advice on my car, right? So at the
Yeah.
end of the day, we have to leave it to the professionals, but we have the right as the people to make sure we're safe.
Absolutely. And for me, it's like it's not so much even asking a tough question like that or having a tough statement like I gave, but I really do appreciate that you are having the full transparency and saying and giving myself, but also the audience, the knowledge of what you as studio owners are doing for your community, because I respect this rather than someone who is a studio owner of a community and doesn't want to give details of what they're doing to help or keep their dancers safe. And again, I appreciate that. I love you guys for that. And for me, it's like, hey, during these times, again, we need to be safe. But again, when we're able to have these classes, whether they be private classes, a lesser capacity class, we realize if we're doing this now, we are going to get to the point in the future when we can really all come together again, because it's easier now to do small little classes like this than having a big festival and a congress. And we realize like, hey, we want to be together,
Correct.
but
Correct.
even though we can be safe, who's to say the next person won't choose to be safe and putting everybody else at risk?
Exactly. And that's the thing. you're always gonna have that one person to where it's like, because I was that one person. If I was
Mhm.
hurt and I was playing ball in high school and playing ball in college, I was like, you know what, my knee hurts and it's not safe for me to be out there, but I want to play. I'm going to get out there. Put me in, coach. You know, like I was
Mhm.
that person. So I know that trait it exists in other people to where it's like, oh, I feel a little sick, but I'm still going to go out. Like, nah, man, if you feel sick, if you're recovering, if you're at risk, stay home. Like it's easy, brother. Like we're going to have classes next week, the week after that, there's
Yes.
going to be parties next year if that's what, if that's what, it comes down to. But like this, it's cool. And this is my thing that annoys me, right? It's more so extroverted people that say that they can't do something. And it's like, oh, I'm extroverted. I need X, Y, and Z. Being extroverted and needing it because of like maybe you need to socialize because of anxiety, because of depression.
Mhm.
It's two different things, right? Where people just like, no, I need people interaction. Man, look, stop, relax. We're gonna get back to it. Like,
Yes.
pause.
I think we've lost Ed for a moment. Hopefully, we can get
One
him.
time.
Hold on, hold on. I can hear
Yeah,
you,
I'm
but
back. I think
I,
I'm back.
I can hear you, but I
Call
can't
Cam.
see you.
Let me see. Let me see. Not too sure. Somebody just tried to FaceTime me. That's why. And I was like,
Oh,
okay,
okay,
what's
okay.
going on? Cam. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't know if I have to wait for it to like get back in. But you can hear me though, right?
Yes, I can definitely hear you.
Should I log out, log back in real quick,
Yeah,
Diamond?
see if you can log on and log back out
All
for
right, cool.
sure.
All right, cool. One sec.
No worries. Yes, everyone. Yeah, again, we do go through these technical difficulties. Again, this is an organic platform, but as everybody's been hearing, Ed has a lot of information. He really is doing something great, and glad that we have him back on, Mr. Ed.
Boom.
Yes,
Bop,
we're
bop,
back.
bop,
We're
bop,
back.
bop, bop,
This
bop.
this is what it's all about. It's that organicness. Like
Hey,
we're
hey, we're
here.
here. We're here. Hey, they can't stop me. They can't stop us.
No, man.
They
But
can't.
I
They
definitely I
can't.
definitely want to say is that again, what you're doing, even being on this platform and being truthfully honest about your views, it means a lot. It really
No, I
does.
appreciate it. No, and the thing is with the pandemic specifically, we it was inevitable to avoid um a spread, but it's definitely super doable to prevent it, right? And it's like I think people needed to really distinguish those two of, hey, educate yourself and know how to prevent, but then also don't be that person and think like, oh, it's never going to happen to me because I'm a human, you're a human. We're all prone to diseases. We're all prone to, getting sick. We're all prone to, one day we're going to pass away and then move on to the next life.
Yes.
And that's sadly, and it would happen, whatever your view is, but it's going to happen. So to think that you can fully prevent something is
Mhm.
preposterous, right? So at that point, it's more so how can I stay educated so I can help the cause and minimize the spread versus like thinking that it's not going to happen and I can do whatever I want and I'm immortal and people are immortal and let's just move forward like it's not happening. And it's definitely not the case. So that's one of the issues that we had in Phoenix, but we grew from it, and
Mhm.
now we're seeing improvement. But Arizona is definitely a weird state when it comes to not allowing some things, but then allowing some other things and whatnot. So as a Phoenician, as a citizen of Phoenix,
Yeah.
I can speak for Phoenix citizens to where it's like you can't tell us that it's okay to do something at first and hey, we're at risk, but it's okay. You can do whatever you want, and then backdoor saying, "Oh, we're gonna shut everything down," and then backdoor after that and say, "Okay, everything's open back up," and then backdoor after that saying, "Hey, we're gonna close that capacity,
Yeah.
so y'all can do whatever." So it's really like the back and forth. So I can speak for the citizens that like, hey, it's pretty confusing. So that's that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I love the honesty because what you're saying, it goes not just for Phoenix, but many other cities, and understanding that the government a lot of times is very confusing. They give one thing, they give another. But and then this now is a perfect transition because even going ahead through COVID, now what not just Phoenix is seeing, but the world is definitely seeing has been a lot of the protests that have been happening. specifically on the topic of Black Lives Matter and police brutality. And for me, I really find it amazing is that a person like yourself, and I noticed this and I saw this through your social media, was how invested and how involved you are as a leader in these protests. And for me, it's like what I can see, I love it. But for me, I can't do it any justice. I would love for you to really expound on your role in these protests in Phoenix.
Yeah, no problem. So, George Floyd, may
Mhm.
he rest in power forever, really sparked a lot of the protests in Phoenix. And my friends and I, just not myself, I have a friend Ethan Turner, Marcus Garman, Jonathan Osifier. We were all pretty, and let's be real, we're pretty hurt,
Yeah.
because that could have been us. That could have been us. We have George Floyd, supposedly, spent a $20 bill that was counterfeit, but you have these dudes in Florida, using pandemic money to buy Lamborghinis. You have
Yeah.
all these dudes, using fake checks to buy sports cars and whatnot, and they're alive, right? And they're alive. Like I could be next. My homie Dejan could be next. My boy Ethan could be next. Marcus could be next. Like it's definitely a touchy subject, and it really hit me because it's more so the guy literally pled for his mother.
Yeah.
Like he literally was calling out for his mom. A grown ass man was calling out for his mother, and at that point, I knew I'm like, yo, this is not right. Like it's
Yeah.
happening way too much, and obviously, we stood up, and there's a lot of us that didn't stand up, which
Hmm.
it's okay to contribute in different ways, but the time is now. The time to speak up is now. Like this is the time. So basically, we went out there, and people wanted to be on the ground every day, and there was really not an organization that was holding like protests in an organized fashion.
Hmm.
That was daily. Like let's put boots on the ground. Let's pound the pavement every day because people were angry, people were frustrated, people were scared, people were just they were being human beings, and that's really what it is. Is that we have humanity, and it is our right as humans to have the a sense of humanity towards one another. And whenever we don't have that sense of humanity reciprocated to a group of people or just marginalized peoples in general, we're gonna speak and we're gonna be loud and we're not gonna be peaceful.
Yeah.
We're gonna be nonviolent, but we're not gonna be peaceful. But then you can't really blame the people that are being, you know, violent. You can't blame the people that are rioting and whatnot that are really they're
Hmm.
coming from an angry place because they were born, they
Yes.
were they were raised in chaos and whatnot, right? At the end of the
Yes.
day, is it gonna push the agenda forward? People may say yes, people may say no, but in my point of view, it's more so
Hmm.
keeping it nonviolent. We're definitely gonna disturb the peace. We're definitely gonna,
Oh yeah.
we're gonna make things inconvenient for people so they can continue to see our faces and hear our voices. But at the end of the day, it's more so when we lose the sense of humanity towards a group of people, a group of marginalized people, whether you're black, whether you're Latino or LGBTQ, like you cannot tell people not to be human and treat others as if they're not human. Because at a point in time, they were treating black people as three-fifths of a person. That's what they
Absolutely.
were doing. They were saying if you have one drop of black in you or African blood in you, you're black, right? So we have
Yeah.
we have this type of treatment going on for so long, and then all of a sudden it's done in the past 100 years or so, and it doesn't exist. Nah, brother, we can still see the trace of this type of behavior and the treatment that we went through as a people.
Hmm.
Now you're killing people for counterfeit $20 bills. Like they abolished slavery, right? But at the end of the day, slave patrols it turned into police, and the police now started to like catch the slaves, put them in jail and whatnot, and then have them work for free. Like you have to watch the show, the movie 13 on Netflix,
Yes,
but
I
it's
have.
literally
I have.
yeah,
Yes.
the prison system is new slavery. Like they're
Oh,
paying
absolutely.
people pennies. It's not for free, but they're paying people pennies to do what? To make license plates, to make clothes, to do all this other stuff. And it's more like, yo, so what my involvement is that I started going out there daily,
Hmm.
and I connected with a group of like-minded individuals, and we started organizing the protest in Phoenix, and we just
Yes.
kept pushing it forward. We kept pushing it forward, kept pushing it forward, and we put boots on the ground every day. If not every day, we had self-care days so we can make sure we get our rest, make sure people take care of things at home or whatnot. But we definitely pushed it forward, and it did get violent. It did get violent, and it's
Mhm.
from the police department because they have tactics to intimidate and to aggravate, right? And to really bait people that don't have that self-control to do something stupid, to where
Mhm.
now they're tear gassing us, and now they're hitting us with pepper balls and doing flashbangs. Myself, I went through that. I got hit by the pepper bullets. I got hit by the
Yes.
mace right in front of my face, and it's 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 saddening that they take these tactics and they really apply them to like, not the I want to say peaceful protests, but they apply to protesters because we're within our right to protest.
Yes.
It is protected under the amendment, and it's like, at that point, if I'm protected under the Constitution, I should be able to do a thing that I have the right to do, and others have the same right to do. But once you start, baiting, and once you start aggravating, and once you start intimidating, and some people, they're just not built like the frontliners. And I can't say this enough, to where if you are not about that life, and like not about that life of getting maced, getting hit with pepper spray, or like the pepper bullets or whatnot, just be in the back, be in the middle, and whatnot. But don't be afraid, because you have people that, like, like my brothers and I, that we're willing to take that first hit,
Yeah.
just so we can stay out there and keep being loud and proving our point. But I think people really need to open their eyes and realize that all protesters aren't rioters.
Thank you.
All protesters aren't looters. All protesters aren't out there punching people in the face or whatnot. Man, I
Yeah.
can tell you, during one of our marches, we had and not to point it out and make white people feel like bad or anything like that, but we had white people waving guns at us. We had white people that brought their army jeeps, their Hummers or whatnot.
Yeah.
They're sitting on top of the Hummers with AK-47s and pointing them at people or whatnot. But then the police aren't doing nothing to them, and they aren't aggravating them. They're not
Mhm.
intimidating them. But we're over here, no weapons. We're just marching the streets, being
Yeah.
loud. And it's like, why do y'all have to aggravate us? And that's where you have to really take a step back and reevaluate their tactics, because I want to say, what, it was like a year ago, or no, it was this year actually. Yeah, this year. I think it was in Michigan,
Yes.
where,
The Michigan, when they
yeah,
ran into the Capitol building with their
exactly,
weapon.
with weapons, bro, with weapons. And it's like, okay, where's the riot team now? Because they know, not just because they're white and they have guns, they just know if they go aggravate them, because they're within their right, they have every right to do so, right? But there's talks of, you can't really have like a weapon in a federal building, but that's neither
No.
here or there, right? But it's like, go aggravate them. Oh, they're going
Yes.
they're going to shoot back, and it's going to be a slaughterhouse, right?
Mhm.
But now, what it looks like is, like, these police departments, they're acting like bullies, just because we have no weapons and we have no way to, like, defend ourselves with just, like, with the same weapons that they're using. They want to pick on us, and we're being super, like, not violent. And now it's like, it's more so, I see the difference in treatment, just like we see the difference in treatment of people of another race or another skin color. You can see it. You can see it's the same thing. It's just factored down, right? To where it's a daily interaction, but then also you can see the difference in treatment when it comes to treating the BLM movement as a terrorist organization. But then, if we're a terrorist organization, how come the Ku Klux Klan was never deemed a terrorist organization? How come they never got met with guns? How come they never were dismantled like the Black Panthers, right? So at the end of the day, it's like, we can see the difference in treatment. We just have to open our eyes to what's legal, what's illegal, what's right, what's wrong. It's really, people are really, they really want to pay attention to the law, and then they ignore their own morals as humans, right? And it's people are being hypocrites because they want to call themselves good Christians, or
Mhm.
good whatever in their faith, but then you're also not supporting the equal rights of just people, or the equal rights of the equal rights of humans, right? So at
Yeah.
that point, people really need to take a step back and really think, is this right or wrong? Because at a point in time, slavery was legal.
Yes.
Did it make it right?
Absolutely
Hell
not.
nah. But
Absolutely
you
not.
would see, you can definitely see what people would be doing during the civil rights era today. You can definitely see it. You can definitely see if they'll be out there, like, fighting for justice, or they will be at home doing what they usually do. You can tell a lot about a person about how they react to a situation, right? So at the end of
Mhm.
the day, it's like, it's the actions speak louder than the words, but the reaction really speaks louder words, right? So at that point, man, like, fighting for justice to me, 50 years from now, when my great grandkids are asking, hey, Tata, like, what were you doing whenever George Floyd happened and all this kind of bad stuff was happening in the United States? I can proudly say, like, hey, I was out there, fighting for my people, fighting for underrepresented people and uneducated people, unresourceful people. You know, and people. I just want to make sure that people know that I was out there not just for myself, but for the future, for my grandkids, for my great grandkids, for their future or whatnot. Because I just want to make sure the world's a better place when I leave it. Because when I leave it, I want to make sure I did my part.
Absolutely. And for me, like a few points I want to make is when you spoke about the police, I, being a military member, will let you know this, what many people do not know. And I was told this by when I was in training. A lot of the police office academies are taught by military. They're actually, if you see how the military reacts and the police react, and it seems very similar because they're being taught the same tactics. The difference is that the military is taught to fight enemies across lines. The police are really, they're not supposed to fight. They're supposed to be the first responders. But that line gets crossed. You also have people in the police force. They're really good cops. Don't get me wrong. You met them. I've met them. You probably met them. But it's the bad ones that are making it harder. But it's also the good ones who aren't speaking up.
Correct. There's a lack of accountability.
And then also another thing is the people that combat when we talk about Black Lives Matter, and they love to combat and they talk about the violence within our community. Okay. But let me ask you this, and not you. I love to ask them is, and they always, and I had someone tell me this. They say, but people who aren't Black get killed by the police. And then I tell them, so you think that's okay? It's like, you're kind of, it's not helping your point or your cause.
It's not.
And for me, I know people myself, like my homegirl Rubia that I had an interview with. She was on the front line. She went to Minnesota. She went to Washington when these protests were happening. And it's people like yourself that we have that information from, because we have so much is that with people who aren't at these protests, we can only look at mainstream media to give us the information we're trying to figure out. But when you have people like yourself and Rubia and others who are on those front lines and visually seeing police officers and the way they're reacting to something that you have every right to do, I completely get when you have people who are causing chaos and that has to be combated. What the problem is do not, and I tell people, do not equate Black Lives Matter with the protesters that are doing the wrong things. Because there are people, and when they talk about anti-fascists and Antifa, I know people who are in Antifa and don't break things. I know people who are in Black Lives Matter that have peaceful protests. But in all organizations, you're always going to have the rogue members that choose to do their own thing. You have to realize is this, not yourself, but others have to realize that it's you really true, like you said, you see people's true colors when you're filled with chaos and distress. You really get to see what humanity truly looks like. And for me, going to those protests, I've even had protests happen right in front of my house in Harlem. And I'm looking at these police officers and I can look and I can see the fear. And that's a scary thing to tell people is as a person who works in the government sector, and to look at certain police officers and say, and to tell them, you look scared because you understand you are outnumbered by the people. The thing is, like you're doing, is having these people protest, which you have every right to do, but you're having your own government look at you and give you the opposite reaction you're looking for. Because you're looking at them saying, hey, pay attention to what we're talking about. They're just focusing on de-escalating in their words, which they're not. And the thing is, I'm glad to see is that, again, there are some law enforcement that really is listening. But it's the ones that aren't listening and combating these peaceful protests. That's what is seen on the media. And like you said, you're there. You're the one on the front line. You're willing to get hit and combat these same law enforcement. Because I tell people this, if the people who hate Black Lives Matter so much, if they had all this hatred and all this vitriol for the KKK, we wouldn't even be at this point.
At all. None. And it can be so much easier, but it could be, but it's not, because our system was built on white supremacy, which, like I said, not all white people are bad. Like, not all black
Exactly.
people are criminals, not all black people are thugs, not all black people are rappers, not all black people are basketball players, not all people or black people run track. Nah, like, bro, like, we understand that, but white supremacy is literally just making sure that white people just stay on top. The white
Yeah.
race stays on top, and they continue to control the narrative. They continue to
Yes.
control how all the systems within this one system works. And for us as minorities, is more so like, hey, I get that we have equality now, quote unquote equality,
Yeah.
but give us the equity, give us the same amount of opportunity than you do, because 400 years of free labor puts you way ahead than a lot of people, and people don't understand that the public school system is they get funding from property taxes. So
Yeah.
if I grew up in the hood, so my high school was broke. We didn't have the best facilities, but we did have the best athletes, though, because we had a lot of anger. We grew up with a lot of
Mhm.
stress, a lot of situations where we want to go out to that football field, that soccer field, that baseball field, and we want to release. So we have the best athletes, though. But then you go, 15 minutes down the road, and you have the white suburbia, and all their high schools have the latest and greatest, technology, the latest and greatest X, Y, and Z, and they have more resources than the ones that we have available
Mhm.
to us in the hood, right? So at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's more so like, hey, how are you able to get that real estate? How are you able to get that property? Because for 400 years, what were you doing with black people? Y'all were they were building wealth, and not every white person was building wealth, because you did have the white poor class, but you had the
Yes.
people. We had the Europeans that were
Mhm.
the rich ones that were buying slaves, and they had all these plantations and whatnot. They're the ones that were building this system of supremacy, to where they're afraid to lose power. It's about power. Racism is about
Yes.
power, right? And it's sad to see that people are so miseducated about this topic, to where they think once we say, oh, white people this, white people that, we're not talking about all white people, because my best friend was white. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, he was a white boy in the hood, and that's gonna be my road dog till I die. Rest in
Yeah.
peace, his soul. I can't wait for the day that I get to kick it with him again. But at the end of the day, it's not all of one people. It's more so
Yes.
the intentions and the strategy that this group of people did, that
Mhm.
that impacts the future. And it's more so, you see it now. You're gonna see it in 100 years, but at least we're moving the needle in the right direction. But we have to make sure that we know the battle is not done. The battle is far from over. We have
Yes.
to make sure that every generation has Malcolm X's, has Martin Luther King's. We have people that balance each other out, because we're not all the same. I'm not gonna police protesters. I'm gonna organize a group of people to go out there and be nonviolent, right? But at the end of the
Yes.
day, I can't tell somebody, hey, not to be angry. I can't tell
Yep.
somebody not to be afraid. I can't police them. I'm not a police. I'm going to make sure that we all have the opportunity to voice our opinion, and we're going to go out there because we can, and it's legal, right? So at this point, it's more so, everyone needs to wake up. It's not over yet. Just because the media stops paying attention to not arresting the killers of Breonna Taylor, we need to still
Yes.
bring those motherfuckers to justice. You know what I'm saying? Just because we're not focusing on Black Lives Matter, because it's a movement. It's not a moment.
Yes.
Black Lives
Yes.
Matter is it's a movement, and not a moment. We're not out here because it's a Netflix special. We're not out here because we might be on TV. We're out here because people are getting killed, and for one thing for sure, they gonna stop fucking killing us, and that's for
Oh yeah.
sure. They're gonna stop, and they're gonna stop, and they're gonna stop. So at that point, brother, it's me being a Latino. I am black.
Yes.
I am black because my
Yes.
dad is a Garifuna from Honduras. That he is Garifuna. The Garifuna people, we led the Black Carib Wars back in the day. So whenever we got caught and we got on the ship, we are like, nah, we're not having this. They rebelled the ship. They took over the ship. The ship crashed on the Caribbean Antilles, and then they led rebellions throughout the whole Antilles and the Caribbean. And those
Mhm.
are my people. I'm a proud descendant of the Garifuna people, so I know where my lineage is from. So at this point, there are black people from Africa
Mhm.
that mixed in with the natives, the Arawak, and then they mixed in with the Tainos, and they mixed in with French and with also Spaniards and whatnot. But I know my lineage, and I am a black man. So I am a black man in America. I live in America. I'm gonna have a family in America. I eat in America. I work in America. I'm gonna dance in America. So at the end of the day, if I'm black in America, I'm talking about my battle here in America, because I know this is universal. Black
Yes.
people everywhere are being marginalized and they're being oppressed. But I'm here in America to where no, like this is where I plan to be. So I don't want anybody coming at me saying, "Oh, well, the rest of the world this, the rest of the world that." Well, I'm sorry that I don't live in the rest of the world. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, where people are still getting beat. People are still
Yes.
getting killed. You feel me? So at the end of the day, bro, it's more so Latinos. We have to make sure that we understand our lineage. My mom, specifically my mom, had to change her outlook on how she viewed race in this country because even my dad, they grew up in the really poorest part of Mexico, the poorest part of Honduras, to where my dad only had one pair of pants, no, two pairs of pants and one pair of shoes. He grew up. He didn't go to middle school. He didn't go to high school. My dad is like he didn't go to a public school or anything like that in Honduras. But he grew up with people that will literally take lives so they can eat, so the family can eat. They can literally do crime, so they can like get a buck or two, so they can catch the bus or something like that. You come from these countries that Donald Trump says shithole countries, right? And come to America, of course things are going to be a lot better because you don't have to deal with that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't take the fact of the matter of there's still injustice and oppression happening in America today when it comes to black voters, to when it comes
Yeah.
to minority voters, when it comes to ICE having our kids in cages on the border. They always want to. It doesn't make sense because are we lazy or are we not? Are we here just to live off the government or we not? Because every time, majority of the times ICE raid something, they raid somebody at work. They're raiding somebody that's at work. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm.
it's like, come on, the media needs to really like get on top of their game because yeah, they're controlling the narrative, but when you really put, two and two together, it doesn't make sense. And on top of that, a lot of data that people want that they want presented, it's all fixed data. Just like this pandemic stuff, where we're having all these discussions of there's a man that tested positive and negative. So like what data is right? Because if we're having all this like data that's mistakes or wrong data, how much of history did we write to protect the aggressors? How much history do we write that didn't mention that black women were used for surgeries for without anesthesia so they can
Mm.
learn about the woman body? How much of that are we not going to learn? Because if you want the data, you just need to open your eyes because it's still happening today. It's literally still happening today to where we're literally exploiting minorities so we can like gain in a capitalistic culture. You feel me? So, hey, brother, I can go about this the whole day, but people just don't know. People
Yeah.
don't know that I studied this in college. You know what I'm saying? There was a program that I was in that literally was based off the oppression of black people and minorities to where, bro, people see me now and they just see me dancing. They think I'm a dancer. I am a dancer for sure, but it's more than this, and it
Yes.
translates to the social dance world because this is just not dance. People say, "Oh, well, you dance like this, you dance like that." Like dance is dance. Dance is culture. Dance comes from an oppression that people went through. In Cuba, they were oppressed. They were
Mhm.
made to be Christians and Catholics when they had their own beliefs. They had the beliefs of the Orishas, and they had all their original belief system, and they were covering up. And then they're out there working the field all day. So when they come back to their home and to their town, and they go to a rumba,
Yeah.
and nació la rumba. You feel me? And that's what they talk about. La negra Tomasa. They talk about Dale mi negra, mi negro, and all these songs. But salsa was literally created through a struggle. It was created through from people that went through chaos, that went through trials and tribulations just to stay alive. So where people disrespect, saying, "Oh, dance is dance, and you should just shut up and dance," how they were telling Ataca Alemana to just shut up and dance, and
Yes.
you're only that when they're standing up for people. It's more so dancers, especially in Europe, need to understand that this is just not dance to us. This is culture. This is why we connect to the music, to the drums, so vividly when we dance and whatnot, because it's literally our life. They're not talking about bullshit. They're singing about our life. The drums it signifies life to us. You know what I'm saying? To where it's a grounded dance and we really appreciate the earth. And it's a lot more than that to where you see these organizers really try to, let's call a spade, whitewash the culture. And it's
Mhm.
more so I want to see my people equally represented at festivals, at congresses and whatnot. I want to make sure that our culture moves forward, our culture as well, but also unifying different people that are fans and that are interested in Latin dancing and just our culture too, because that's just next level. I just want to make sure the culture gets pushed forward.
Yes.
in a really equal way, because at the end of the day, it's just not dance to a lot of us. To some of us, yeah, just dance. I'm just gonna dance. It has nothing to do with like race or anything like that. But it's more so, there's a struggle that a lot of us go through, and our parents go through, and our ancestors went through to make sure that this is even popular today. So we just have to pay our respects to that.
Yeah, and for me, definitely concluding for me, I would say I agree with everything you said 100%. And even more so is that we have to realize, like, with this quarantine, we all been at home, and like you said, we're collecting our thoughts, and we're now figuring out in our dance scene who really supports the causes that we are so passionate about, who really supports us as a whole, or who just supports us on the stage, who really cares about the culture, or who cares about the money that comes from the culture. And it's these conversations that we are having that are putting these promoters, putting these organizers, putting these social dancers on the spot and saying, what are you going to be doing when we do come back? What are you going to be doing to help the culture instead of whitewashing the culture? Because they realize too is that this culture is vast. This isn't just in the US. This is also globally. And we realize there is a monetary gain. We completely understand it. But at what cost are you, does that, at what cost? At what cost? Like you said, you want to see people that look like you on the stage. I want to see everybody on the stage, but I want to see people that look like me. I want to see people that are passionate as you and myself, talking, having these conversations in these hotel rooms when all we were doing was just saying, oh man, let's have this good drink and let's have fun. But there were a lot of things and topics that we didn't want to discuss because we thought it wasn't the right time.
Correct.
But now it is the right time, and it is going to be the right time when we do come back, because hey, there are topics like I've talked about with others, with sexual assault, with discrimination, with colorism, with sexism, that was always ingratiated. But a lot of us were naive, or a lot of us really just didn't want to focus on that because we just wanted to love one another. But we didn't realize a lot of us didn't love one another.
At all. They don't. It's behind closed doors. It's called behind closed doors. Supporting. I don't want no behind closed doors supporting, bro. If you can't be out there grinding and shooting in the gym with me, bro, I don't want you on my team.
Yes,
I don't want you on my team.
And I'll tell you this, it was funny you just said that, because yes, last night I had to talk with Carlos, and he even said his hashtag was behind closed doors support is canceled. Because there is no longer that I'm going to come to this event, and when I just maybe ask you a question about how you feel, no, let's not talk about that. We're here.
Nah,
it's done.
Exactly. Nah, it's done. Everybody needs an equal opportunity to really support our cause, and we have to give them the chance to. And this is the moment. This is your chance to support. On top of that, I challenge both organizers and I challenge both artists. There's a lot of artists that are afraid that they know an organizer has done something that was discriminatory, prejudice, or racist, or has prejudice or discriminatory or racist views, and they still work for them. But these artists are afraid that this money is going to stop coming in. When I tell you that this is the challenge, let that go. Let that go. If this artist is not supporting the culture and is joking about the culture and it's undermining what we go through, there's going to be new money. It's going to open up another opportunity. It's going to open up another opportunity for you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. Yeah, my AirPods died, but it's going to open another opportunity for you to really get a new form of income. But we can't be afraid as artists to stand up to organizers and say, hey, like that wasn't right, and I don't appreciate this, and I'm no longer going to be a part of your event. And then also I challenge organizers to like Lawrence and I, we host the Phoenix Side of Bachata Congress in Phoenix, Arizona next July 2021. Come through. We're gonna turn up. We're gonna have some fun. But then also somebody that really opened my eyes to what organizers need to do is William Flanders, BB and Kiki from Reno. He really just started being really public with his support of like, hey, like Black Lives Matter. Have y'all seen this fucked up shit and this and that and this and that? He was really educating people, and he's standing up. And at that point, he gains my full respect and support, because a lot of organizers aren't doing that. A lot of organizers have shady past, and they've done some shady things before, to where it's like, man, like as a Latino, why would I help somebody make $1 off Black and brown bodies that do not support
the existence of and the influence and the immigration of Black and brown bodies, which means Black and brown culture being shared to the rest of the world. So at that point, I have to make that hard decision and that hard pill to swallow of, you know what? No, I'm no longer going to do that. And I would take my chances myself to move forward and being happy.
Absolutely. And, for me, it's like, again, having this conversation is something that's so needed. Um, and I really am thankful, to have you on this platform, because what you're saying is so, so important. What you're saying is so, so needed. And what you're saying is truth and honesty brought to the forefront. You yourself talking about your scene, you yourself talking about the issues that matter to you is something that is inspiring, not to myself, but it's also inspiring to the next artist, because there is somebody that is going to watch this and then they're going to be able to have that conversation.
Yes, sir.
So, again, Ed, I truly thank you so much for coming on this platform. And like I tell all of my guests, this is the first discussion, but it surely won't be the last. But at least before we go, can you kind of give us some contact information about your classes and just any other details?
Yes, sir. So before I even go into that, I just want to say thank you to Lawrence Garcia. Thank you to Dejan and Claude. Thank you to Alex and Desiree. Thank you to Fausto and Kate. Thank you to Brian and Samantha in San Francisco. Thank you to everyone that's influenced me to take this next step forward. This was going to be, a great year for a lot of us, but then the pandemic hit. But I continue to say, if you had any type of influence in my dance journey or just in my life in general too, I just want to say thank you. But ultimately, thank you, Diamond, for having me on the show. Like you said, it's not going to be, this is my first time, but it's not going to be my last time on here discussing some stuff with you, So I do have classes on Sundays, Fundamental Bachata, 5 to 7 p.m. at the Dance Outlet, 2530 North 7th Street. And then I also have Intermediate Bachata on Wednesdays, 7 to 9 at the Dance Outlet, 2530 North 7th Street. We are continually training. It's a training program. It's not just a show me like workshop where I just show you moves and show you how to, do a sequence. It's more so we're going to train, we're going to do drills, we're going to teach you technique. I'm going to make sure that you increase your bachata IQ so you can be a self-sufficient dancer and not only rely on things that you are learning from workshops, right? I want to make sure that you get to the point where students get to the point they can think for themselves and create by themselves and just want to go into the studio so they can put more hours into the movement, so they can be a better dancer, so they can continue to influence others, which brings more people to the community, which ultimately brings more members to being aware of the culture. So Sundays and Wednesdays, follow me on Instagram at _Eddie Peligro, on Facebook, Edd Amaya. That's pretty much it, brother. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you again for coming on the platform. And, definitely stay safe out there in Phoenix. I'll definitely keep supporting your brand, keep supporting your movement and your projects. And, definitely people later this year, I'm definitely going to have Ed back on discussing more projects and more things he's a part of within the dance community, but also the community as a whole. So, I definitely thank you, Ed, and definitely until we meet again, my friend.
Diamond, muchas gracias, Bobby. Thank you, bro.
Gracias, everybody. Have a good night and be safe.
Peace, guys.
Peace.